Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of The French Way. I have a very special guest today, Judith Keys, who is an Anglo-Saxon. She's going to tell us all about her story. She currently lives in France, and this is really meant to be a coffee chat. So she and I are just going to chat away as if we are having coffee and a croissant on a Saturday morning in Provence under the sun, just friends catching up. And so it's very informal, but yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. So Judith, welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's lovely to be here.
Yes. So no, thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and specifically what brought you to France?
So, yes, I am called Judith Keys and I live in Provence in the southeast of France. And I came here, I think it's 12 years ago now, at the end of 2012. So, yeah, it's 12 years ago almost. And the reason I came to France, it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version, is that my family have always had a love of France. My dad was a French teacher,
Mm.
and my dad and mom, they took the plunge and took early retirement back in the early 2000s and bought what was supposed to be a holiday home here. And we came every summer and, spent I was in high school at the time, and we spent all our summers here, and it was amazing. And then, yeah, when they took, sorry, so that was the earlier project, and then when they took early retirement, they moved here and decided to just go for it. So yeah, so there was always a love affair with France, and I was actually the last one to move here. I just came to visit them then once I was, had flown the nest and was working and had started my own life, I just came to visit the family and see them from time to time. And then, yeah, then I just decided I wanted to move. I wanted to change, and France was the obvious choice because, yeah, it was just such a big part of my family's life. It was a buffer for me as well because I wasn't moving to somewhere that was completely unknown, and also had family here. So, yeah, so it just sort of felt a little bit obvious. And I came to try it for 6 months and then stayed. Still here 12 years later.
Okay. And when did you meet your husband? So isn't your husband French?
hmm Yeah, so Pierre, I met him in that 6 month period when I came to try living in France. And to be fair, he was not the reason I decided to move. I mean, he was a lovely part of the move, but I was ready to make a change and get away from my life in Scotland. Not a bad reason. I was, just working away on the treadmill over there of corporate life, and I wanted a change. So yeah, I met Pierre in that first 6 month period. Yeah, so in December 2012 I met him. And yeah, we got married in 2016 and had our first baby in 2017. And yeah, our next little boy was born in 2021. Yeah, so I've got two little boys.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about like what do you like about France? Like why did you decide to stay?
So there's something really particular, I think, about France, and I think it is a cultural thing. It didn't feel too different for me because I spoke the language, so that was quite not easy for me, but it made things a little bit easier for sure. My master's is in French, so it was just that wasn't as much. The language barrier didn't exist as much for me, and I think I do love the people. I love the language. I love the way of life. It takes getting used to, I'm not gonna lie. But that romantic side of life in France does exist. I still believe it. My husband is romantic still after 12 years. We have our difficult times, but I do think, there's something about life here, and especially where I live in the south, there is a more relaxed vibe. And again, if you find situations difficult to deal with, sometimes that can be hard. You'll probably agree with me, Karen. Like
Mm.
some of that can be difficult when you first get here. But I've grown to love those differences and that French way of life. Yeah.
And what specifically? Give us maybe a couple examples of things that, um, the way of life. What specifically do you like in the way of life?
I love the French directness. So you will know about this as well. So I love the fact that you can say how you feel to anybody, really, to your doctor, to your neighbor, to anybody, and then obviously friends as well. But there's just this sense of honesty and that buzzword authenticity, but I think it's true. People are just very much themselves, and tell you what they think. Sometimes it can be quite harsh, but generally it's just a good way of going about your day, I think, just, saying it like it is. Um, what else I do like the more relaxed vibe, and also I think there's less of a where I come from anyway in Northern Ireland, so I'm originally from Ireland. There is very much a sense that you must people please. So I suppose this comes alongside the directness thing, but the French definitely don't have a people pleasing gene,
Mhm.
And like when I go to work, I want to do my best and strive. And, I see burnout mentioned a lot back in the UK, and I'm sure it exists here too. But I think people tend to be very much, they look after themselves, and there isn't this need to be constantly thinking about everybody else and just running yourself into the ground trying to please others. And I love that about here, and I see it all the time. We've talked about this before, Karen, about the fact that, shopkeepers are just generally a bit rude and, and, it can be difficult. But then I think, well, okay, just, there's something quite nice about it as well, I think. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you agree. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, the whole directness thing, it's true. I hadn't really thought about it like that, um but yeah, I would pretty much say that people say what they think.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, they do. And I think it's um you have to get used to it also, and I think maybe learn to not take things personally.
mm, mm,
Um But yeah, I also find it extremely authentic. I think a lot of
mm,
times people find, when people come to France, it's hard to make friends
mm,
initially.
mm,
It takes a while for people to really get to know you. It's not just like, "Hey, come on over," um but I think that authenticity is definitely
mm,
there and a very important part of the culture. So,
mm, mm, mm.
yeah.
And I think what you said there's so interesting about not taking it personally, because I have seen French people have very heated discussions, be so direct with each other, and then just immediately go back to normal life and as if nothing has happened.
Mm,
Whereas if that happened in my family, or with friends and people I know at home, it would just maybe people wouldn't speak to each other for, maybe after that type of exchange. Where here it's just very much part of daily life, and they can talk about politics and talk about these big subjects and then just move on. And it's quite refreshing.
mm, mm. Okay. And tell me also, because we've also talked about Provence.
Mm.
So my listeners know that I am moving to Provence
Yes.
in a couple months. This episode will be out in February 2024, and I'm moving in May 2024. But I always love hearing about it. So tell me a little bit about, like, what is your favorite? So maybe also for our listeners, just a reminder of where Provence is in
Mhm.
France geographically, and what do you like about living there?
So yeah, so Provence is right down in the southeast. And where I live is actually called, it's La Drôme, so the department is La Drôme, and we are in La Drôme Provençale, exactly. And we are at the start of the pre-Alps, so it's starting to get really hilly and quite cold in the winter, so it's really freezing here at the minute, although the days then get quite hot when the sun comes out. But yeah, and what I love about it here is that I get the four seasons. I get
Mm.
really freezing cold winters, and then the summer is very hot, and I love the heat. So I can't wait for it to start getting a bit warmer actually. This weekend was really hot during the day. So yeah, I love my markets. So all around me every week, every day of the week, there's a different local market to go to. And where I live specifically in Provence is very much a sort of food basket type area. So there's lots of different produce grown, lots of
Mm.
wine. There's vineyards everywhere near where I live, all around us. Lots of fruit trees and orchards all around. So we're apricots, peaches, just up where my parents-in-law live, about 1 hour away from here. They're further into the Alps, and it's apple country around there. So just orchards everywhere. It's just a beautiful part of the world, quite dry, so dry and sunny, as
Mm.
opposed to not really very humid and wet. We just get lots of dry days, which can cause drought in the summer. It can be a very difficult time in the summer, especially for agricultural workers and farmers. But yeah, just gorgeous, lovely and sunny. Um, yeah. Oh, I feel dreamy just talking about it. Yeah, you're making me remember why I love it, Karen.
Yeah, I can't wait to come. I think that yeah, for those of you listening who haven't been, I think there's so much to do, there's so
Mhm.
much to see, the food, the culture, the arts, the hiking. There's really just an amazing amount of things to do in that part of uh France.
There's
So,
so much to do, and it's so beautiful in a very different way. I think that typical idea of a sort of small Provençal village with the shutters and the sleepy the flowers and the sunflowers and the cat, just lying on the doorstep. That is what it is like. If you imagine what Provence looks like, that is what I live in. It is so, you know, it feels trite to say, but that is what I live in. It's absolutely beautiful and very different. Obviously, I love big cities as well. I'm a city girl at heart. I was born in a city and lived in cities until I moved here. So um, but there is just something very beautiful about this part of the world.
mm,
Mhm.
mm. And so your husband is French. Is he from that area or is he from a different part of France?
He's from Marseille, so he was
Okay.
born and raised in Marseille, lived there until he moved here with me. And the reason we're in this little village is because that is where my parents moved to, and we
Mm,
knew about this little village where I am because my dad was a French teacher, and he had assistant and assistante come to his school every year from France to help with his French teaching and to help the kids learn to speak better French. And nearly every time we came on holiday, then we would visit one of these assistants, or here. And one year we came to this area and stayed with Agnes and her family, and my dad just completely fell in love with this little tiny place in the middle of nowhere. And it's all Agnes's fault that we're here in this place, because that's where my mum and dad bought the house, that's where they retired to, that's why I'm here, and that's why Pierre's here now too. He moved here, he fell in love with it as well.
okay. And tell us also about, because you're a big foodie.
Yeah.
So tell us like specifically, what do you love about the food and the food culture here in France?
I love the culture here in France when it comes to food. They have very strict rules, which sounds terrible, but there's something very comforting about those rules. It's a routine. everybody follows the rules. So not just kids and they have to eat at certain times. Everybody follows the same food rules. So
Like, for
we,
example, what?
for example, so
Give us a couple some
we all eat breakfast. It's about 7, between 7 and 8. It's lunch at 12, and not before or after. Sometimes a little bit before, maybe. You have to have a snack at 4 p.m. Everybody has a snack, a goûter, it's called, at 4 o'clock. And that's generally something sweet. And then dinner at 7 or 8. And nobody really what's the word? Nobody diverges. What's the word? I can't think, from those rules. Pretty much everybody eats at those times. Restaurants normally aren't open out with those times where I live anyway. I'm sure in Paris and in big cities you can find food at any time of the day, but around here, no, places just close down. You can't eat if you want food at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Good luck, So um but I have really grown to love that routine. I find it so hard to begin with, being used to city life, and back home where I'm from, everywhere is just open 24/7 to
And
eat
why do
and
you
buy
like
food.
it? What's
I
what's
think it is that
appealing?
sense of comfort. It's that everybody knows what to do and when to do it, sort of thing. There's a sense of comfort and routine in that I like. My kids as well, it helps me with organizing in a way because they just know what's happening. Everybody sort of follows those same rules, so it just makes life easy. I also love the apéro culture. So in the summer, there's a lot of come round for an aperitif, and you go and I mean, that just happens all the time in the summer months as soon as the weather's nice. So you'll be invited to go for an aperitif, which is, a drink and a few crisps, olives, saucisson, that type of thing. Um, so I love that as well, that culture, and quite often it ends up in dinner, and you stay on and are there until, the wee hours of the morning. So there's something about the French way of appreciating food, the lunch thing where, at home when I worked in the corporate world, especially, um, my lunch was at my desk and it was a quick sandwich. Here, that doesn't happen. It's, you go for lunch at 12 and you come back to work at 2, and it's usually a sit down affair,
Mm.
and it's taken seriously and people take a good break. You're not expected to just keep going um, and it makes more sense to eat a big meal at lunchtime and a smaller meal in the evening. That's the way my grandmother would have been actually in
Mm.
Ireland back in the day. It seemed to change then. And when I was growing up, it was a sandwich at lunch and then a big dinner. It just all went the wrong way round. So I do like that here. And I
What do you
just
think?
love the sorry. I
Mm.
love just the care that's taken over food as well. I find that here it's a lot of cooking from scratch and a lot of fresh seasonal produce as well, which I love.
So yeah, I love the way that you talked about the care about food.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Mm.
Um, did you cook when you came, or did you have to cook? Did you have to learn how to cook?
No, I've always cooked.
You've
So
always
I
cooked.
yeah. No, I have background of having a grandmother who just took so much care over her food and taught me from a very young age, specifically baking. So I baked a lot with my grandmother. So scones and shortbread and tarts and desserts and things like that. But she taught me how to cook as well. My mum is a really good cook.
Mhm.
So my dad would have done the sort of weeknight meals, but my mom was the one who did the big Sunday lunch or the dinner party foods, that type of stuff. Um, so I always had learned to cook from scratch. Really, we didn't have many ready meals and takeaway meals when I was a kid. That was like a real treat to get a takeaway, on a Friday night. So yeah, so I had that background, and then I just see it here so much. You don't see as many ready meals here in the shops. It's not really a thing. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I see them, but I don't see, well, nobody in my family would buy ready meals really. Sometimes for convenience. Pierre sometimes gets them for work, but he usually takes leftovers from what I've
Mm.
made or he's made the night before.
And so, what do you think the benefit is? Well, yeah, what do you think the benefit is of making from scratch, and also taking time to sit down
Mhm.
for your meals?
So from scratch is so important, I think, for us to see what we're eating because so many ready meals have so much crap in them, let's be honest. And I get obviously that for convenience and when you have a family and young kids, I mean, that is my situation at the minute. I work really hard. I have two young children. And I don't mean to be preachy about it, but actually you can make really good meals from scratch quite simply. It doesn't have to be complicated. Um, you can get the kids involved. I know as well that can be really hard. They make a mess, but you can. Some meals of the week you can get them peeling the veg or we made a big couscous at the weekend with my family, with my husband's family, and Marius, my eldest, was chopping the carrots and peeling the carrots, and he wanted to get involved. We were all around the table prepping the veg.
Mm,
Yeah, so what you said there about cooking from scratch has lots of benefits, I think, because we see what we're eating, but also there's connection with food. There's connection for my family. We all sit down together to eat what we have made or what I've made. I mean, it doesn't always go down well. My kids are picky, kids are picky. They don't love everything that I make. However, when I involve them in the cooking process,
mm,
they are far more likely to enjoy what I've made because they have had a part in it. And I will say that to people all the time. My best example was when I took Marius to the market one day and said, pick a vegetable that you like the look of. And he picked a fennel bulb because they look cool, they look so cool. And he wanted to hold it in his hand. And we brought it home and I cut some off and we ate it raw with just a little bit of salt and olive oil. And he loved it. And then we cooked the rest and he was
mm,
involved in all of it and he ate all of it. And I am pretty much 100% sure that if I had cooked him fennel and served it to him without him being involved in that process, he would have just been like, oh, what's this?
mm.
But because he was involved from the start and it was his choice as well, he loved it. So I always use that as such a good example for people trying to get their kids involved in cooking or getting them to like fruit and veg.
Mm.
Fruit's not so hard, but veg especially. Take them to the market, take them to the supermarket, and get them to choose. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I think that it's true now that I'm also thinking about it. And I share this also a lot with my clients. A lot of it in France is about the preparation. It's
Hmm.
not just about what you're going to eat, but it's about anticipating what you're going to buy. It's about buying in the market. It's about going to the different vendors and seeing what's available and seeing what's fresh. And then it's about cooking it. And then it's
Hmm.
about eating it. But I think that those four parts between the anticipation, the purchase, the prep, and the cooking, I think they almost have all equal parts
Hmm. Hmm.
in, you know, in
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to food here.
And I think as well, you know yourself, and I know for sure the pleasure I sometimes get in going to the supermarket and buying crappy food because I just don't have time and I think, oh, I'll just get that and I want to satisfy some sort of a thing of, I'll get crisps and cake and we'll get ice cream for the children and you think it's going to be good and you buy, maybe a ready pizza thing or whatever. And it's like instant gratification and then it's not actually that nice.
Mm,
And I think when I go, right, let's make a really amazing Sunday lunch and we'll get these nice things and that nice thing, and I'll make this dessert, and we plan and we buy and we prep and then we eat, the satisfaction is tenfold. You
mm,
feel amazing because you've made this beautiful thing, you're sharing it with your family, you're eating it, you've planned it. It's sort of more satisfactory, really. I get much more satisfaction from that. You think you're going to get good satisfaction from
mm.
crisps and whatever, and actually it's not good. And I think that's true for so much in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want the quick fix, and it's not nice
Yeah,
actually.
it
You
doesn't
know.
turn out. And
Yeah.
And so tell us, what are your favorite foods or foods or ingredients from Southern France that you personally like to use in your cooking?
Hmm. Tomatoes in summer here are one of the best things I've ever eaten. I mean, I'm a tomato fan anyway, but don't eat a tomato that is not in season. That is my one piece of advice. If you can take anything from what I've said today, they're just water. They're horrible. So come to Provence and eat a tomato or pick it off the vine in the summertime. And yeah, I love cooking with them. I wouldn't necessarily use them in a sauce. I would try and make them like a big tomato salad or stuffed tomatoes or anything where they are the sort of star ingredient.
Mm.
I'll make a really amazing tomato tart, which is just so simple and delicious in the summertime, and it looks so pretty. So yeah, I love tomatoes here. I love the fruit in the summer as well. Winter's a harder time. It's much more root vegetable based, and
Mm.
that can be harder to cook with, but you can make really comforting things with squashes. I shared a recipe recently for one of those. They're called potimarron in French, and when I looked
I
that
think
up,
it's pumpkin. I think it's a
well,
kind of pumpkin, isn't it?
the kind that I use for this particular recipe, I thought it was called a chestnut squash, but it isn't. It's because it tastes a little bit like a chestnut tastes. And I found what it's called in English and now I can't remember. I'll have to look it up after. But it's those little sort of wrinkly skinned orange ones with
Mm.
quite a hard skin on the outside. And they're so good. And you just cut the top off, take out the seeds, put some cream and lots of parsley and garlic and thyme in, and then put the lid on and just bake the whole lot together. And then when it comes out, it's like you've got like almost a soup, a ready-made soup inside. You just scrape out the flesh and some of the cream and just with crusty bread. It's gorgeous. So yeah, there's loads you can do in the winter with good ingredients to make for a really comforting
Mm.
um yeah, those root vegetables come into their own, I think, for winter, don't they?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
comfort food.
No, there's I think that's one of the things that I love about France. It's just so much choice.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's all of the different vegetables or herbs or
Mm,
all the different kinds of onions, all the different kinds of garlic. There's
hmm.
just so much choice. Um
And
yeah, that
also choice that on the flip side of that is you can't get everything you want at all times of year, which I
mm,
love because then when strawberries come into season, it's like a prize, you know.
mm,
You go and get them and they're fresh and they're in season and they're taste of something. Here where, when I go back home, I love that I can get strawberries in December, but to be honest, they're not that
mm,
nice. So again, you know, uh, it's choice here, but it's the right choice at the right time. And you can add those vegetables to lots of things as well. I try and do that obviously for my kids, and I'm sure your clients are the same. Like you're trying to add veg into as much as
mm,
possible. So I make a really great lasagna, but with loads of butternut squash in it,
mm,
and loads and spinach and mushrooms and just trying to layer up as much veg in it as I can. And that's such a great recipe for this time of year, just a full of
mm.
seasonal stuff.
All right. Well, maybe you'll share that with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
um Maybe one question, because we were also talking a little before we kicked off, is
Mm,
have you, when it comes to, health and wellness here in France,
mhm,
do you have any observations, um, kind of compared to, back home or
mm,
before you moved that you were kind of surprising?
yeah. The main thing that I see here, I think, is I have never really seen a fad diet culture
Mm,
in comparison to how I would have observed that at home anyway, back in the UK and Ireland. So there was always a new trend, and I still see it now on social media, so it'll be intermittent fasting, or it'll be the paleo diet, or it'll be,
mm,
and everybody sort of goes and jumps on the bandwagon and does it. I have not seen that here. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it exists, and again in bigger cities and maybe just in my entourage, I don't see it, but I genuinely don't really think it exists. And I think it is
mm,
because of that French way to didn't mean to
mm,
say French way, but yeah, a little
mm.
plug for you. Because of their way of being quite rigid and what they eat and when they eat it. I
Mm,
think when fads come in, they just go, oh no, that
mm,
intermittent fasting, what? No, I need to eat at 8, 12, 4, and 7. Do you know what I mean? It just sort of doesn't stick or something.
mm,
So um I don't see that fad diet culture, which I think is a good thing. And again, just
mm,
back to the veg prep stuff. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. My mother-in-law, she's in her 70s, and I just remember from the get-go just seeing her constantly preparing vegetables. That's all I ever
mm,
saw her doing. And again, this weekend, I took a really beautiful photo of her. She was at the table and she just had her hands in a big pile of veg and vegetable peelings, and just, just the same vision I have of her all the time is just her at the table prepping veg. Elle trie les légumes. She's just always en train de trier les légumes, which is just always prepping veg. So I think I noticed that it was something that was a big change for me. I suppose I'd seen that growing up too, but just I think the veg in particular,
mm.
we maybe didn't have as much veg as a kid. The choice was probably smaller in Ireland when I was growing up. It's changed now, but yeah, just this thing of prepping from scratch, and
Mm.
um, that being such a thing here, yeah. And no fad diets. What would you say?
Yeah.
Do you see fatty diets?
Yeah, no, in France, I don't see any fad diets either. Like,
No.
um, I think there's such a culture around food that if people actually need to lose
Mhm.
weight, then they just slightly eat a little bit less,
I
usually,
know, I know.
or
Yeah.
they'll maybe cut out wine. But I mean,
Mhm.
it's not, there's not a shiny new object.
Mhm. And when it's so
Um,
weird as well, because when I try and say, because I'm quite a fan of it, intermittent fasting, it works well for me. So, and it's worked for me lots of times over my life. So I quite often will say to Pierre, if he wants to lose a bit of weight, you should do it. And he cannot do it. Like he just will not. It's like eating on the sofa. He just will not do it. He eats at the table. He literally can't physically eat on the sofa. He just gets all weird and he's like, but where am I going to put my glass and my plate? And he just gets all uncomfortable and it just annoys him.
that's so
So,
funny.
even for goûter, even for a 4 o'clock snack, he will eat at the table.
Yeah.
And it's just what him and his family have always done
Mm,
and what I am used to now. And I mean, it's very rare. Sometimes for the kids, I'll prep them something and let them sit and watch a bit of TV on a Saturday night or something in front of sit and watch the TV with their dinner, but very rarely. And I love that. We're all around the table, we're all chatting
mm.
together. Sometimes it's chaos. Well, most of the time it's chaos, but
No, but I think that, and I love to, this is a story I love to tell because I have, so my kids are older. So
Mhm.
now, we always used to eat also at the table every single evening. But
Yeah.
this past year, my brother and sister-in-law and their children, who are probably preteen, came to France a couple times. And
Mhm.
that, when you ask those girls, what is the best memory they have of France?
Mhm.
It is the fact that we sit and eat at the
Yeah.
table every
Yeah.
single night and we cook and we share and we talk about our day. And that is, they always say that is their best memory
I
of
know.
France. And it's true. I honestly think it's true. I think now that I've gotten older, just, also for a little bit of sense of realism when it comes to my point of view. My husband and we cooked so much for years for
Yeah.
our children and for us that now when it's just the two of us, we we do have aperitif
Mhm.
or which kind of becomes our dinner. So once in a while
Yeah.
we do have a glass of wine or a beer and just some munchies just because I'm
Yeah.
tired of cooking, but
Mhm.
it is relatively rare, I think, to do that.
Yes. And I totally agree with you, Karen, what you say there about I know it's easy to say, you should be prepping veg all the time, and I'm making it sound really romantic and it's so lovely and what we should all be doing. But I am in no way wanting people to think that that's what they have to do all the time, even if you can do a couple of meals from scratch,
Mm,
depending on where you are, with your family and with your cooking skills. Um, very much, I don't want to be preachy about it because everybody has their own
mm,
way of eating and things that they like, but I think there's room to try
Mm.
and room to always add something, a little bit of veg in, or even a veggie starter. Quite often, it's become a huge
Mm.
thing now, this veggie starter thing, but we've always done that here in France. It's always
Mm.
been a part of our meal. We'll always start with, even if it's just in the summer, maybe a tomato that we'll just cut up and have with a bit of olive oil, or quite often we would have carrot râpée, so just some grated carrot with some vinaigrette, and that would be a starter. And even so, you don't have to necessarily make a big meal out of it, pardon the pun, but you can just introduce a little bit
Mm.
into maybe 2 or 3 meals per week, so that they aren't just on the go quick, let's get something in as
Yeah.
fuel, try and spend a bit of time. And I do think it makes a difference in family life for sure, to sit
Mm.
together and share, not only what we're eating, but share, our day and what's been happening. But yeah, by no means, I'm sure there's no way it's possible for everybody all
But
the time, and
n-
that's normal.
not all the time. But I think I agree with you though, with a little bit of effort,
Hmm.
you can anticipate it, and it's easy to
Hmm.
have a raw vegetable. Or I personally purchase, prep, and cook everything on the weekend and have it
Hmm.
all week. So as long as you're creative, and I'm not, I love to cook, but it's very, very simple what I do.
Hmm.
And so I think, like you said, everybody can find a way kind of to work it
Hmm.
into their own lifestyle. Well, tell us a little bit about your membership and what you
Hmm.
do specifically.
So my membership is called My Food in France, and it is a cookery membership mainly for English speakers who are thinking of moving to France or who have already made the move. And I suppose I wanted to create a welcoming space for people in my situation who are like-minded people who love food and maybe don't necessarily have all the skills or the know-how to create seasonal, tasty meals, and just want to learn new skills as well. So not only is it a place to come and meet other people who love France and love food, but you'll also learn some new skills. So I just did a cookery demo in there yesterday. Friday here in France was Chandeleur, which is Pancake Day in France. So yesterday was the date for the cookery demo in the membership, and I showed everybody how to do crêpes Suzette, which is one of my favorite,
Mm.
simple, just really quite impressive, but really easy desserts to make. So I was flambéing pancakes at 9 o'clock yesterday morning. It's quite dangerous. But yeah, it was just really nice. So there's a demo every month. Then we do a cookery class every month as well,
Mm.
and we do a challenge in there as well. So I'll get you to either pick an ingredient or pick a recipe, or there'll be some sort of a foodie challenge for you to
Mm.
try every month in there as well. And this month is my month where I am, so it'll happen probably, haven't decided yet whether it'll be every 3 or 4 months. The doors are going to open for 2 weeks for people to come and join for free and have a go in the membership. Come and see what it's like, have a look around, take part. So there are going to be 2 activities happening when I open the doors on the 14th of February. They're going to be open for 2 weeks, and there'll be 2 things to take part in when you're in there. There may even be prizes for those who take part. So it's going to open, yeah, for free for 2 weeks, and then you are free to just to leave, and that's fine. Or if you want to stick around and become part of the membership, you can stay and sign up. Yeah, so I absolutely love it, Karen. It's like my favorite little place on the internet that I've created. We talk food, we talk France, we talk just general life, and also learn new skills together. So I think there's something really lovely about that, and creating food and dishes together brings us back to that connection thing. So even though we're on Zoom and there's people from all over, we have this amazing connection for, an hour and a half on a Friday. We cook together this once a month, and it just creates this amazing connection. So I love it.
Okay, great. Well, I'll put everything into the show notes because this episode will be coming out during those 2 weeks. So
Mm,
for those of you
come and join us.
listening, you have this is coming out on February 21st. So you'll have 7 more days to join. So be sure to look in the show notes.
Hmm.
Um, Great. Anything else that you want to add or that has come up through our conversation?
I think I think for anybody who lives in France, I suppose I'm not sure where your listeners are based mainly, Karen, but just to come and try the food, give it a go. If you're new here and you're finding things difficult, go to your local markets, go and speak to people, find nice ingredients, try a new thing. That's what I love about the foodie culture here, I think, is the market and talking to others about food. Everybody's quite into it, I think. So most people are quite foodie here, and go to your local cafes and restaurants and meet and chat with people. It's a great way of becoming part of the community, I think.
It's
Yeah.
actually, it's a very good point. If for all of my listeners, if you ever want to engage a conversation with somebody in France or that you meet elsewhere that is French, talk about food. It is
Yeah.
a very safe topic. Everybody will have something to say, a recipe to share. So yes, it's
I
the
think they're
love,
very,
it's a love language in this country.
oh, I totally agree. They're very proud of their cuisine,
Mm.
and rightly so.
And rightly so.
Mm.
Great, Judith. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'll put everything in the show notes and we'll talk soon. Thank
So great to
you.
talk. Thank you, Karen.
All right. Take care.
Bye.